Police apprehend 3 suspects in connection with recent killings in Zamfara State.
Katsina Senior Citizens Forum visits President Buhari and pledges continued support.
The senior citizens of Katsina, those of them who have served the federal, in the military, and the police, they will use all their connections to garner more support for the president.
President Buhari commends the Catholic Church on educational development as it holds first plenary of Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we focus on the controversy over the sequence of elections.
Now, following the amendment in the order of elections for 2019 general elections by the 2 arms of the National Assembly, some interest groups, politicians, and indeed some Nigerians have continued to react to the amendment.
First of all, while the passage of the amendment was smooth in the House of Representatives, in the sense that the bill was unanimously adopted, it wasn't exactly in the same situation in the upper chamber, as in the course of the passage, 10 APC senators kicked against the report of the committee, accusing the leadership of the National Assembly of influencing the amendment.
Indeed, Kingsley, and in the new amendment, the legislators substituted Section 25 of the existing law with a new Section 25, subsection 1, which provides for the new order, which is to begin with the National Assembly elections, followed by State Assembly election, then the governorship election, and finally the presidential elections.
Now, in addition, of course, to the question of the sequence of elections, there is also the argument as to where exactly the power resides to determine the order of the elections. Is the power vested in the Independent National Electoral Commission, or is it that of the National Assembly, as we have seen with regard to the amendment to Section 25 of the Electoral Act 2010, as also previously amended?
Indeed, Kingsley, there's also the question of the rationale and the wisdom behind the, of course, amendment and the introduction of a new order. What is, as we have said, the motive behind the amendment? Who is constitutionally empowered to change the election sequence, and how will this affect the credibility of the elections? Are there intrigues or motives behind, of course, the amendment by the National Assembly? These are quite a number of questions that are agitating the minds of Nigerians, politicians, and all stakeholders in the electoral process. This is Good Morning Nigeria. That will be our focus today, the controversy surrounding the new election sequence. I am Claire Adilabu Abdul Razak, and I welcome you. I know you're watching. I welcome you to the program, wherever you are. Thank you, and it's always a pleasure to have you with us.
If an election looks like an examination, I'm sure some persons will ask the question, does it matter which paper comes first?
Precisely. That's a good question.
Go ahead and face the exam. You see material whether or not it is the most difficult course that you are facing. But that's the issue that, of course, we shall be taking a look at in our discussion segment on Good Morning Nigeria today. I join my colleague Claire, and also welcome you to the program, always reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We are here at the Abuja headquarters studios. My name is Kingsley Osadolo. In the course of the program, we have our regular companion segments, including newspaper review, business, sports, and others. In the meantime, here is our newscaster today, Joy Osiago with the morning news. Hi, Joy.
Hello, Kingsley and Claire, and good morning to you out there. 3 principal suspects arrested for their alleged participation in the recent killings in Zamfara State are now in police custody and are assisting the police in their investigations. A statement from Force Public Relations Officer CSP Jimo Moshood confirms the suspects as 45-year-old Haliru Garba alias Mabushi, Zubairu Mafara alias Wakili, also aged 45, and Nafiu Badamasi alias Zakiru, who is 40. Meanwhile, the IGP has directed the deployment of additional 3 units of police mobile force to Zamfara State, bringing to 10 police mobile force units dispatched to the state in recent times to augment the personnel of the State Police Command to maintain law and order and sustain normalcy that has been restored in Zurmi and other parts of the state. Still on Zamfara killings, the federal government has sent a delegation to condole the people of Zurmi Emirate of Zamfara State over the killings of over 30 people in Biryani village. Minister of Defense Mansour Mohammed Dan Ali, on behalf of President Muhammadu Buhari, delivered the message when he visited the area. Mansour Mohammed Dan Ali prayed to Allah to grant the deceased eternal rest and their families the fortitude to bear the loss. He urged the people to cooperate with security agencies to uncover the perpetrators of the act. Members of the Katsina Senior Citizens Forum have reassured President Muhammadu Buhari of their firm resolve to stand by him in the challenging task of meeting genuine national aspirations for sustainable unity, stability, and prosperity of the country. This was during a solidarity visit to the president at his residence in Daura.
Here, first of all, to condole Mr. President over the loss of his relations, and also to show solidarity and full support of his administration and the way he's carrying on. And also to assure the President that the senior citizens of Katsina, those of them who have served the federal, in the military, in the police, they will use all their connections to garner more support for the president and pray for the success of his administration.
The federal government has expressed commitment to offer opportunities to young entrepreneurs to grow small and medium-scale businesses and industries across the country. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo stated this in Lokoja while inaugurating the medium and small-scale business training.
The reason why we set up the MSME clinics, why we set up social investment, the social investment program, is because we care about the young people, we care about the traders, we care about the market women, we care about the widows, we care about the physically challenged, we care about all of those who have been ignored in the past. We don't need to know anybody to benefit from any of the programs that President Buhari has established through his government.
The young people of Africa are the pillars on which the future growth and development of the continent is being anchored. This is why ECOWAS in the last 12 years has been developing youths of the sub-region through empowerment training programs in various aspects of agriculture.
I would want to impact knowledge at the same time set up my own farm.
With what I've learned here, I believe my life will change.
We also invited the ministers to, where possible, provide necessary follow-up and assistance to these young men and women.
Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed has reaffirmed determination to reposition the tourism industry for revenue generation and provide economic development support base for the economy as obtainable in other parts of the world. The minister stated this while addressing newsmen in Abuja.
One of the major advantages of what the CAF meeting will be that it gives Nigeria a global platform to tell the world exactly what's available in terms of sound, in terms of sight, in terms of culture, in terms of creative industry. Today, there's no gainsaying that we have taken the world by storm in music, in films, in theatre, and when we now have a gathering of all African countries and UNWTO to showcase and celebrate Nigeria, then you are one step nearer making Nigeria that flagship.
Nigerians have been enjoined to support the ongoing revolution of the nation's economy by the All Progressives Congress under the leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari. National Chairman of APC, Chief John Odige Oyegun, stated this in Lokoja while addressing APC supporters at a mega rally in support of President Muhammadu Buhari in Kogi State. President Muhammadu Buhari has commended the Catholic Church for its penchant for educational growth and support for peace and stability of the country. This was delivered in an address by Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, to the first plenary of Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria, which held at St. Gabriel Catholic Chaplaincy in Abuja.
The church in Nigeria commands a large followership, and we must leverage on the advantage by encouraging our teeming congregations to follow in the apostles' footsteps.
Investments should not only be purely for profit, but should also have positive social impact on the poor and vulnerable groups.
And that's the news for now. Good morning, Nigeria. We'll continue with Claire and Kingsley after the break.
Unemployment, notably youth unemployment, features strongly in our party's manifesto. We intend to attack the problem frontally through revival of agriculture.
The 30K is going a long way. Actually, I bought an acre of land for 60K like 2012, and presently I have a cassava farm and a yam farm.
Reorganized, trained, and fully equipped, we are the new improved Nigeria Police Force. We fight crime, we bust syndicates. Whatever the crime, wherever the hideout, the Nigeria Police Force will get you busted. Stop kidnapping, armed robbery, murder, pipeline vandalism, and other criminal activities. Be productive. Be security conscious. Join the police force to secure your life and property. This message is from the Nigeria Police Force Public Relations Department.
Sore throats, it's often caused by bacteria and viruses. Feels like they're having a party. You need Strepsils. It soothes the pain, plus it fights the germs with 2 germ-killing actives. Double power in 1 lozenge. Bye-bye sore throat. Take Strepsils.
Your perfect family is under threat by germs. Infectious diseases are now the world's biggest killer of adults and children. Every day, 16,000 children under the ages of 5 and thousands of adults die from infectious diseases. These infectious diseases are caused by germs. They are everywhere. An average human being comes in contact with over 1 million germs daily. In unclean water, dirty surfaces, in the toilet, on cuts and wounds, on your clothes. Germs can cause deadly diseases like typhoid, diarrhea, flu, and cough. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's 1 Cap Full for surface cleaning, in your bathing water, in your laundry water, for first aid, to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol Sure. Endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
Whenever pain occurs, you want quick relief. Try Nurofen Express. It goes to the source of pain and gets to work in under 15 minutes. That's why Nurofen Express delivers fast and effective relief. Nurofen Express works at the source of pain. Fast.
Being a mom is great, but when your child has a fever, you don't know what to do. I trust Nurofen for Children to take care of my child's pain and fever.
Effective relief you can trust.
Dettol team is visiting schools to teach children how to protect themselves from diseases. Do you know how we get illnesses like diarrhea, cough, and cold?
No!
They are spread through germs which are everywhere. You collect germs that cause diseases. You pick up germs from any surface, like when you don't wash your hands after going to the toilet, while playing. And then you can get sick because of germs. That's why you need to fight germs to stay healthy by washing your hands and taking your bath with Dettol soap to protect from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Wash, wash, wash your hands. What you have to do is bath, bath, bath yourself. Dettol soap every day. Wash, wash, wash your hands.
Welcome back to the program. It's Good Morning Nigeria, and we're broadcasting live from Africa's largest TV network, the NTA in Abuja. Let's talk a bit of business now. And the oil prices seem to have gradually bounced back, and that's as demand is improving. And also on business news, Nigeria is set to resume exportation of hibiscus flower to Mexico, and that's in the next 2 months. Let's get details from our Joy Uzo on the business news.
Welcome to Business News. Nigeria's total non-oil revenue generated in 2017 stood at 3.42 trillion naira, reflecting a 13% boost in non-oil revenue compared to the previous year. Economic analysts say a combination of exchange rate stability and improved collection in value-added tax was responsible for the upsurge. At the same time, readjustment by firms to new economic innovations also helped to lift non-oil revenue. And as the federal government takes major steps to reposition the non-oil export sector, modalities are being put in place to address challenges militating against the successful operation of players in the sector. In October 2017, some containers of hibiscus flowers, a popular plant in Nigeria used for local zobo drink, being exported to Mexico, was found to be infested with pests, leading to its export being suspended. In the 4 months, Nigeria is said to have lost about $6 million, as Mexico is a major market for Nigeria when it comes to hibiscus flower exports. This tripartite meeting at the Nigerian Export Promotion Council is to deliberate on ways to resume exports and avoid future reoccurrence.
Now, this year, I don't think the country can record up to $10 million. Though we have other markets, but not as compared to Mexico. So it's a great loss.
So we'll address that issue, and very soon we have already opened up discussion with the Mexican embassy in Nigeria, and then SAGAPA. SAGAPA is like the equivalent of our quarantine service here in Nigeria.
Coordinating Director, Nigeria Agricultural Quarantine Service, however, explained that the situation has been dealt with and export should commence in 2 months.
Why I say 2 months is because we have virtually finished all that we need to do. What is remaining now is to send our report now to SAGAPA. We were the ones that stopped it, so we are the ones to now inform them we want to resume. That's all.
Investigation reveals Nigeria has exported over 1,989 containers of hibiscus flowers in the last 9 years, while it gained $35 million from Mexico alone in 9 months of 2017. Now, oil prices in the international market posted modest gains at the end of last week, rising on the back of a falling dollar and comments from Saudi Arabia that bolstered confidence in the longevity of OPEC cuts. Broader upswing in equity markets also played a part on crude benchmarks. Traders on the Nigerian stock market are expecting the market to continue from where it left off last week. The equities market finished last Friday's trading on a positive note, appreciating by 0.08% to close at 42,638.83 basis points. We'll keep you updated with latest closing figures from the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange later in the day. Finally, the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development, in partnership with the Australian High Commission, will today commence a 2-day policy and capacity building workshop on the mining sector. The Nigerian International Petroleum Summit also commences in Abuja today. On Wednesday this week, the FGN monthly bond auction is expected to be opened for subscription. And then Friday, the federal government's 5th Eurobond issuance that hopes to raise over 7.143% raise will close. That's it on Business News. Many thanks for watching. I am Joy Uzo.
Thank you very much, Joy Uzo, for the business news. Next for us, we'll look at the headlines and some of today's newspapers from their front pages.
All right, as usual, let's welcome Bayo Atoyebe in the studio. Bayo, good to see you. You talked about traffic this morning.
Yes, it's very heavy, unusual on Monday morning. So what?
Unusual?
Managed to get here somehow.
Did you get to see what was the issue?
I think a vehicle broke down and there was this tailback, and so it affected all those that's there.
All right, Bayo, good to have you in the studios. We hope you also enjoyed your weekend.
Yes, I did. Thank you.
All right, we had a lot of politics on the front pages of the papers this morning. Daily Independent and the Nigerian Tribune. These are papers that I have. Let's begin with Daily Independent. The lead story of Daily Independent is as follows. Buhari and National Assembly set on coalition course with 4 riders. President may withhold assent to election reorder bill. Lawmakers vow to override decision after 30 days. And APC doomed if Bola Tinubu fails, says Shehu Sani. And party faction suspends El-Rufai for 6 months. Now, that story, a variant of it is also the lead for the Nigerian Tribune. And Nigerian Tribune says APC doomed if Tinubu fails. That's according to Senator Shehu Sani. And governors are threat to party survival, he says. Cooperate with Tinubu and Buhari. Cooperate with Tinubu. Buhari tasks APC governors. That story is in greater detail on page 4. And just below that, you see another story. Don't impose presidential candidate on party. IBB wants PDP leaders. And APC refuses to bar Ibadan indigents from 2019 governorship poll. And below that, right at the foot of the front page, PDP governorship crisis. Mark panel begins sitting. Katsina elders to reply Obasanjo's letter soon. That's according to Governor Masari. Details of that story can be found on page 38. Claire, I'm sure you have other stories.
Oh, yeah, Kingsley, I have some very interesting stories. But let me take up from where you stopped on the story of the reconciliation, APC Reconciliation Committee. It's not a lead story on the front page of the Punch, but it takes a space at the bottom of the paper where it reads, Reconciliation, APC doomed if Tinubu fails, says Shehu Sani, and it continues on page 7. But the lead story right on the front page of The Sun is an economic one, and it says CBN, I beg your pardon, The Punch. It says CBN bars banks with huge bad loans from paying dividends. Banks, discount houses with weak capital base also affected. And there's a similar story on the front page of The Leadership. But this time, it talks about Bitcoin trading. It says Nigerians trade 1.3 billion naira Bitcoin on 13 platforms weekly. And that is, of course, despite warnings by regulators and legislators. Bayo, that's crypto.
Well, to be forewarned, they say, is to be forearmed. Not only the central bank, the NDIC too, and members of the National Assembly have warned about cryptocurrencies. They are the kind of trading you take risk with. There is no security about it. So investors beware. You remember what happened with the Ponzi?
MMM.
Yes.
So this is February. I think they promised to pay their clients in February last year. That's 1 year later.
1 year later.
Maybe they will pay them next year ahead of the elections.
They still have not been paid. But
right.
meanwhile, the issue of the political story is raised. You recall that the president appointed the Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu to head the reconciliation of the All Progressive Congress. Already, in some states, party members have been expelled, and many of them are placing their high hopes on the reconciliation committee. But meanwhile, a senator representing Imo North in the National Assembly says that the 2/3 votes required to override President Muhammadu Buhari's refusal to assent to the proposal made by the National Assembly to reorder the election, they will not get the required majority. He argues that the senators and the members of the National Assembly were actually initiated that amendment in target of President Muhammadu Buhari. And he said, I have taken pains and looked through the Hansards of Nigeria since independence from 1960 and the Second Republic 79 to 1983 and the Third Republic 1979 to date. There is nowhere where legislators ever inserted the sequence of election in any electoral act. So this is novel, and he says that as far as he's concerned, from what he has seen, a majority of legislators who have very reasons for supporting, and many of them are not going to support any initiatives by the veto. And he says, wittingly or unwittingly, they can't garner the 2/3 majority required in both chambers. And he says, and he asks, how am I to explain to my constituents in the Imo State if I am to vote against it? Because you look back at Okigwe, Umuahia, Aba, Port Harcourt Road, Enugu, Onitsha, and the second Niger Bridge. They have all been abandoned for over 2 decades, and this current administration is working on them.
But the question to ask, so this is a topic we're drilling in the main on the discussion segment. But the question to ask is, what is novel? Is it the sequence itself or the amendment? That's a question we will take
What
up.
the legislator is saying that there's no time that any of the previous electoral acts have deliberately targeted the days for election. It has always been the initiative of the independent.
But this is
National
not
Electoral
days,
Commission.
this is sequence. But let's get on with the other.
Yeah, of course. We'll tackle that when our guests join us in the conversation segment. Bayo, there are other headlines on the front page of Independent. Now, that's above the nameplate of the Daily Independent. It says, use of juju hampers trial of suspected human traffickers. And that's according to the DG of the National Agency for Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons. Use of juju hampers trial of suspected human traffickers. And then below the Independent nameplate says, get Shekau, dead or alive. Buratai charges troops. That's on page A5. Now, also there, Obasanjo's visit to me unique, says Jonathan, and APC touting state police to win election. That's attributed to IPOB. Nigeria's progress depends on our unity, according to Ekwere Madu. Another headline, just by way of a photograph, actually. First, from the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, the main photograph there, it says, former President Olusegun Obasanjo, supported by the Bayelsa State Governor and King Alfred Dete Spiff, who used to be military governor of Old Rivers, at the unveiling of the plaque for a refinery project by a group, and this was in Yenagoa, Bayelsa State. Also below the nameplate, 5 years after withdrawal, Catholic Church returns to calm.
Kingsley and Bayo, I have some very bizarre stories, trending on the front page of the Punch. Let me just begin with the story on the bottom page, trending at the foot of the paper. It says, Katsina governor's aide kills own daughter with car. And if you look at the details of the story on page 5, you will see the picture of the young toddler, Aisha, it's right there. Unfortunately, the aides, of course, posted on the social media that he accidentally crushed his daughter without knowing that the child was behind the car. That's very, very bizarre, very, 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 very pathetic.
It's unfortunate. The man was reversing his car. Yes. He didn't know the girl was behind the car. He crushed the girl. The girl died instantly, and it's very sad. He has attributed it as an act of God. But however,
he said it was being tested by God. I don't think God says one with such things.
I mean, it's a kind of a fatalistic submission that all actions are predestined and they are bound to happen when they will happen. Well, it's very sad.
It's unfortunate. It's an accident.
Yes, it's an accident.
An unexpected occurrence. Yeah, sometimes when you have, if you are backing up particularly from your garage where you have parked your vehicle, it's always advisable to look around.
To check, yes.
To look around and be sure that, because the toddler may just be very,
playing around. Crawl around and you know.
It's unfortunate, yes.
However, tragedy was averted at Akure.
Yes. There's another one.
Which one?
Still the Punch. Police shoot newlyweds. Kill one.
Well, there are conflicting reports about that. The newlywed was being escorted and said one of the people who were with the newlywed was shot. I can't remember what they said was the circumstance. But we were lucky tragedy was averted at the Akure airport when Airpeace aircraft was about to land and the pilot discovered cattle on runway. And he quickly had to alert the control tower. So the aircraft hovered for about 15 minutes for the cattle to be cleared from the runway before he was able to land. You recall that it's not the first time it has happened. As late as November 2016, there was a report in Vanguard that incidentally it was the same Airpeace that was trying to land at Sambakwe Airport, and he spotted cattle on the runway.
It happened at Port Harcourt.
Port Harcourt only happened on 6th of July 2005.
Right.
In fact, it was an Air France Airbus that landed at night, and in the process, the pilot had to maneuver, and he killed 10 of the 50 cows on the runway. Since that time, there was a pronouncement. I remember it was Malam Issa Yuguda, who was Minister of Aviation. Yeah. He said there should be perimeter fencing of all the runways of Nigerian airports. If the fencing had been done, there's no way cows will stray into
There was another post on the social media last week about one stray cow at one of the local airports. This is not Akure now, quite distinct from it. The passengers were on board, they were on ground, they were not trying to land. And then you saw the stray cow there. The officials, were seeking to lay the cow off the tarmac.
While we're at the plane issue, there was a post over the weekend, Kingsley and Bayo, of a man who was stealing from passengers, fellow passengers,
in flight.
Yes, in flight stealing, and I thought that was just crazy.
It's not the first time. It's not one or two persons in the past had been apprehended. But my concern is, the details were not disclosed. I also saw that clip. He was making a confession as to what he did, but how he did it is a curiosity.
It's a curiosity.
Yeah, how would you know, for instance, that a passenger has cash in his backpack or in his carry-on luggage, and then how do you access it in the overhead cabin? Unless, of course, it comes with a similar backpack as his hand luggage, and then decides to pick at random any such hand luggage. Bayo, let's go to the editorial for this morning. The editorial we are taking is from The Guardian, and it's on page 16. And it's on the condition of Nigeria's prisons. And it says, as an opening salvo, that Vice President Oshiba just lamentation over the deplorable state of the country's prisons and denouncement of the savage treatment of inmates is a remark that must be taken seriously. And the paper goes on, of course, to say that the nation's political structure needs to be reordered in line with the principles of true federalism in order, of course, to have a more efficient prison system. Ayo.
Well, from the data so far, they said among the prisoners, we have a prison population of about 68,110. And out of this, 46,756 are awaiting trial. And some of them for minor offenses that they ought not to be in prison. Some for a fine of about 1,500, 3,000, 5,000, they cannot afford to pay, and they have been languishing in jail for over 3 and 5 years. You recall that recently there's a federal government delegation headed by the federal chief judge of the Federal High Court and the Minister of Justice and Attorney General. They've been going around the prisons, and so many of such unfortunate inmates have been set free. Some of them have had their minimal fees paid and they have regained freedom. But one risk that we are taking is that these are people who have been incarcerated at wittingly or unwittingly, and they have been released on society without necessarily taking the data about them. The data about criminals or suspects in the information services of the prison authorities, the police, is very poor. And this has been an opportunity. Before you sell these people go, give them a condition that if by any means you have found yourself here again, you will be in the music. Instead, you have fingerprints, and then you have data about them. Then you will be able to monitor them outside.
Right. That's a data bank for criminals, printed and all of that profiles. Bayo, that's the much we can take for the Super Review this morning. Thank you for being with us. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, it's Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll be dealing with the hula baloo over the sequence of elections for 2019.
Speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
I was distressed to notice that some of the comments, especially in the social media, have crossed our national red lines by daring to question our collective existence as a nation. This is a step too far.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Your perfect family is under threat by germs. Infectious diseases are now the world's biggest killer of adults and children. Every day, 16,000 children under the ages of 5 and thousands of adults die from infectious diseases. These infectious diseases are caused by germs. They are everywhere. An average human being comes in contact with over 1 million germs daily. In unclean water, dirty surfaces, in the toilet, on cuts and wounds, on your clothes. Germs can cause deadly diseases like typhoid, diarrhea, flu, and cough. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's 1 Cap Full for surface cleaning in your bathing water, in your laundry water, for first aid, to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol sure. Endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
Do you say what you know for sure to be true?
Do you know that Abuja is planning to arrest all these girls wearing weave-on and human hair?
Why spread falsehood, half-truths and lies just to make yourself relevant and to feel important?
Did you read last week's paper?
No.
You read?
No, I'm not reading for newspaper.
That is the problem. My people suffer for lack of knowledge.
People are misled by your fabricated stories and lies.
You've killed me, so now my memorial service now go happen. Oh, God. Oh, God.
Unfortunately, these spinners of yarns and story people dwell among us and abuse us via our ears.
How does he get his information?
The cuckoo sends in the town where me and know they get information.
Alas, tune into your rib-cracking comedy this week as we bring you the episode titled Story People.
Over and out.
Brought to you by Glow.
The largest data network, Glow Unlimited.
When I was a little girl, I loved spending time with Mum and Grandma cleaning the house. I knew what Grandma's secret was. I was so excited to sing in the choir. And your shirts are always so white. I knew what Mum's secret was. Today, I'm a modern woman that still trusts the secrets passed down to me.
It's Jik, of course, the trusted bleach which can be used all around your house for amazing results.
Shh, it's our little secret.
It's no secret. Jik removes 101 stains. Just Jik it.
What makes a Naija mom powerful?
I encourage my kids to learn new things, and if they get hurt, I rely on the power of my Dettol's 1 Capful to fight germs.
My family needs protection from germs. I use the power of Dettol's 1 Capful to disinfect surfaces and clothes.
I trust the power of Dettol's 1 Capful for bathing. The power of Dettol's 1 Capful protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Be a powerful Naija mom with Dettol. Be 100% sure.
Use Dettol Skin Jelly, which protects against germs for a healthy, smooth skin every day.
right, let's get on with the big issue for today, and we're interrogating controversy over sequence of 2019 elections. So let's take this background report from our correspondent, Uyemi Ajay.
In Nigerian election, it has been a known tradition that the presidential and National Assembly elections are held the same day before other polls, while the state houses of assembly and that of the governorship follows. Just recently, the Nigerian Senate adopted the Conference Committee report on the Electoral Act 2010 amended bill, which changes this sequence and now puts the National Assembly election first, followed by the state lawmakers, then governorship and the presidential election should be the last election in the country. Although the House of Representatives unanimously adopted the new sequence, however, the situation is not the same with the Senate, as 10 APC senators protested over the amendments, accusing the leadership of the National Assembly of influencing the change.
Who has the ultimate, the final power, authority vested by this Constitution to fix dates for election?
This development has brought questions of what this is meant to achieve and why the need to alter it. This is based on the fact that the new sequence makes the elections to be staggered in 4 days instead of 3, as it was the case previously, and is contrary to the timetable released by INEC.
Stay in any platform. If I'm destined to come back 2019, no man on earth can stop it.
I will not insinuate that there are subterranean issues on it, but what I want to know is that we are going to stand on the altar of truth and justice. We should save ourselves this embarrassment of creating confusion in the polity.
We are lawmakers. We have no business with this election.
I'm against any attempt by anyone to pass a law that is perceived to be targeted at an individual.
Now, this is raising more fears in the hearts of some Nigerians who are questioning the credibility of the forthcoming 2019 general elections. So who is responsible to alter the elections timetable? Why is the new sequence commencing with the National Assembly elections instead of that of the State Assembly, which is the lowest? What is the motive behind these amendments? These are some of the questions guests on Good Morning Nigeria will provide answers to shortly.
Thank you very much, Oyemi Ajayi, for that background report. Of course, you got the sound bites from a number of senators. Of course, the Senate, Claire, you'll recall when we were introducing the topic this morning earlier, we did indicate that in the House of Representatives, there was unanimous adoption of the motion, but not so in the Senate. Even though it was passed, 10 APC senators staged a walkout. We have guests with us here in the Abuja studios, and as well as from one of our national network centers to discuss this subject in greater detail. First, we'd like to welcome Honorable Mark Bila. Bila represents Gwe East and Gwe West Federal Constituency in Benue State. Honorable Bila, pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning. The pleasure is all mine.
All right. Also here in the studios, Mazi Afambo Sigwe, former Secretary General of the Nigerian Bar Association. Familiar face on Good Morning Nigeria. Mazi Afam, pleasure with you, to have you with you this.
My pleasure to be here this morning.
Yes.
All right, Kingsley, we have our guest joined us from our Bini Network Center, and he's Dr. Isaiah Osifo. Isaiah Osifo is lecturer in the Department of Political Science and Public Administration, Igbenedion University, Okada. Thank you, Doctor, for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, let's begin with Honorable Mark Bila. Of course, a very good question will be, what is the wisdom in the actions of the National Assembly in reordering or amending the sequence of the 2019 general election after INEC had released its own timetable?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me make this clarification, because your correspondence erroneously alluded to a tradition. There is no tradition in the sequence of elections. Actually, what has been the norm, because for the benefit of hindsight, or rather with the benefit of hindsight, we should actually keep statistics in this country. In 1979, with the advent of democracy, what was the order, the sequence of elections? It started with the National Assembly. In 1999, it was the same thing. 1992, in 2003, in 2011. It is actually an aberration that came to play that it started being National Assembly and Presidency on the first day. That is actually the aberration. So the National Assembly is actually going back to, if you want to now call it tradition, to the traditional sequence that has always been the case. And there's a paramount reason that we have considered the sequence. And that is the fact that we have noticed a trend in the country where, you've heard the word before, the bandwagon effect, where because it has been seen that a party has won at the presidential level, then everybody starts trying not to be part of the losing party. And we do not actually allow our people to exercise their constitutional duty. A lot of people are disenfranchised. A lot of people are disillusioned. It is on record that it is when this sequence I mentioned and which we're adopting now is done that you see maximum participation of the electorate. You will see that in the sequence where the presidency starts, there's voter apathy because they lose hope.
Why did you wait for INEC to come out with its timetable before embarking on this action?
We did not wait for INEC to come out with their own timetable. We have processes in the National Assembly, and those processes were in place. It only happened that they came up with it as part of their own responsibilities before we came to the point where we arrived at the final conclusion of the Electoral Act. The records are there in the National Assembly votes and proceedings when these issues began. So Nigerians should not be hoodwinked into thinking there's any agenda. And let me make a correction here. What INEC has powers to do constitutionally is to set the date.
We will get to that. I know Kingsley wants to pop up a question.
Well, but as well, let's allow him, yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, make your point.
Because Nigerians need to get this very correct. It is unfortunate when legal luminaries also make that mistake. Fortunately, we have one here.
He's made a mistake?
No.
All right.
I'm saying fortunately we have one here to corroborate what our Constitution says. In the relevant sections of the Constitution, with regards to National Assembly elections in Section 76, with regards to House of Assembly, Section 116, President, Section 132, and Governor, Section 178, it's very clear. INEC will determine and set the date. What the National Assembly is doing is indicating a sequence. We have the constitutional responsibility and right to amend laws. We're amending the Electoral Act within the ambit of our constitutional powers. And we believe that wisdom should prevail in actually indicating a sequence that we believe is in the best interest of Nigeria.
Is there a constitutional provision for this distinction that you have analyzed? The distinction between the date, the powers of INEC to set the date, and the powers of the legislature to set or amend the sequence. Is it constitutionally provided?
Yes, in terms of INEC, it's very clear in the Constitution. INEC will set the date. That's why I quoted the relevant sections. INEC is restricted to setting the date. Now, with regards to the sequence, there is no particular provision about a sequence, but our Constitution empowers the National Assembly to make and amend laws. And in the course of doing that, it is our prerogative as representatives of the people to determine what the content of that law will be. And in this regard, people keep talking about why did we choose to do it now? Every law is amended in every country as we progress in the lifetime of the country in the best interest of the country.
All right, Honorable Billa, thank you very much. I'm wondering, Claire, whether we should delve right away into the legalities or otherwise. Since it's already talked about some of the political considerations surrounding the amendment, quite aside from legal authorities that is also put forward. Perhaps we should deal a little bit more with the politics of of the sequence
Precisely.
before we bring
Into
in
the big
Alpha
group.
Mosigwe. So let's
Precisely.
go over to our Benin Network studios. Dr. Isaiah Osifo, you've been listening to Honorable Mark Belahi, and of course, we are also familiar with the hula baloo over this order of elections for 2019. Let's get your thoughts.
Well, thank you very much. I we like to look at this issue from two angles. First, from the point of ethical perspective. You are reserving the legal aspect, but definitely the two have to go together. But let me look at it from the point of ethics first. Now, in ethics, or the ethical foundation of any society, simply means actions and orders, norms are acceptable if they are advantageous to the majority of the people of the country or the society, as the case may be. Now, on the other hand, it is equally acceptable if it is not injurious to anybody in the society. The act of the National Assembly or the bill of the National Assembly to order the conduct of election in Nigeria, from the point of view of ethics, can be argued to be in the interest of the majority of Nigerians. But if there's a dispute to that, if you say no, it is not true that Nigerians want this order the way it has been passed by the National Assembly, then you now look at it from the angle that is it injurious to anybody? Now, if you pass an act or you make a bill from the point of view of ethics, and such provision does not hamstrung the interest, does not, does not constitute a threat or an injury to anybody, either an actor or the observers, as the case may be, then why the hula baloo? That is the point of view of from the ethical point of view. So I see that ethically wrong for any person continue to make so much issues on an act that do not constitute any injury to anybody. The conduct of election is not really the order. It is the transparency. It is the outcome in terms of the process, whether it will be free and fair. Anyone can come first. The issue that is fundamental to the political system of Nigeria and sustainable democracy is whether the election will be free and fair. You can have the House of Assembly first, you can have the president first. The order is inconsequential to the foundation of a sustainable democracy. And that is why when I see some of these, some members of this National Assembly making an issue out of it, and we need to look at what is the ethics of their argument. Is this order an injury to any person? As what it says, targeted at any person. What is the target? If it was saying that it is because of the president, is the president not willing to have a free and fair election? It can come at any time. If Nigerians want the president to win in 2019, he will win irrespective of the order. So ethically, I see what the National Assembly has done as in order in terms of ethics. But if you're saying you want to leave the legal aspect, but I support the views of the National Assembly member there that Section 76 is explicit as to the issue of date concerning the National Assembly. Section 116 is explicit on the same issue. Section 132, subsection 1 is explicit on the president. Section 178, subsection 1 is explicit on the issue of the governor. And if these sections are explicit as to the issue of date, is there any relationship between date and order? Now, if you argue that, yes, date is the same thing as order, which means INEC can decide to conduct the whole election the same day, because the constitution did not provide for the order for the conduct of election. So if you say the date and order, then let INEC go ahead and hold all the elections the same day, or hold the election in 1 week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, because there need to be an order in terms of the ethics of the society that this is so feasible to hold in 1 day. Then there is a lacuna. The lacuna can only be filled by the National Assembly. So INEC cannot confer on itself a right that is not explicitly stated in the Constitution. Now, that is why you have the Act, the Electoral Act, to fill those lacuna, to fill those areas that are not explicitly defined. So it is a symmetrical relationship between the Constitution and the Electoral Act to have a good conduct of election. Where you don't have explicit definition, then it is the right of the National Assembly. INEC is an executive body. They implement, they don't make law. Now, they cannot now make law to decide the order or the sequence of election in Nigeria. So ethically, the argument of those who are saying it is not in order, it is wrong, legally they do not have the foundation to substantiate their argument.
If, from your analysis, the sequence or order of an election really is not injurious to anybody. That means it doesn't matter, which order it comes. What, in your view, is then the reason for the National Assembly, to amend the order? Already, there's been an order, a status quo that is, has been a tradition.
Now, in any democratic society, especially in a developing country like Nigeria, and evolving democracy, laws will always come into place based on the reality of the time or the exigency or the exigency of the time. And that is why Section 4, Section 2 of the Constitution makes it so explicitly clear that the National Assembly shall be responsible for making laws for the peace, order, and good government of the Federation. Therefore, this order or the sequence being made may be pursuant of ensuring that democracy is being sustained, elections are being conducted in an environment that will promote transparency and good conduct and orderliness. So if we are even talking of the world order, it is only in the National Assembly right that you have the world order, making law for the peace, for the order, and for the good government of the Federation. So in a democracy, the reason why you have National Assembly is to continue to respond. It's a pragmatic institution that is meant to be responding to issues that are arising in terms of realities of the time and exigency of the time, maybe on the basis of resources, based on the basis of population, based on the basis of challenges, and this intervention is always required by the National Assembly to fill in gaps that are not captured by the Constitution, because the Constitution cannot be, cannot be rationally comprehensive. It says that at the time the makers were drafting this Constitution, they cannot grasp all issues in the futures in terms of the development of the country. So this order, to me, is a pragmatic response to filling inevitable lacuna that will always arise on the basis of the constitution of the country. Not only Nigeria, in only part of the world. That's why you have parliament. The purpose of the parliament is to give further explanation to areas that are not covered by the constitution, therefore leaving it for the judiciary to interpret.
Dr. Isaiah Osifo, thank you very much. We'll come back to you at the course of the conversation. Now let's bring in Mazi Afam Osigwe, former Secretary General of the Nigerian Bar Association. Okay. The floor is yours.
Well, when Honorable spoke, I thought he was going to refer to a section of the Constitution which I may have overlooked that justifies the present action of the National Assembly. Unfortunately, he didn't, or he couldn't. All the sections he has referred to go to show that the action is unconstitutional, is an attempt to usurp the powers of INEC. The point has to be made that both INEC and National Assembly are creations of the Constitution. And it means that whatever they can do will be circumscribed by the powers given to them by the Constitution. He referred to Section 76, Section 132, and 178(1). All these sections provide that INEC shall fix a date for the conduct of election into the House of Assembly of a state, presidency, and governorship of a state. None of these sections subject the exercise of these powers by INEC to a law made by National Assembly. Now, if we go further, he has talked about sequence. If you look at the third schedule, Part 1, Item 15A of the Constitution, it gives INEC power to organize and supervise the conduct of an election. Organize means sequencing, to put it in the order you want it to go. That is assuming these other sections earlier referred to are not explicit enough to say that INEC is the one that has the sole discretion on which days to conduct the election. If they choose to conduct it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it doesn't really matter. It's not an ethical political issue. It's a legal issue. When a legislature passes a law, the first question to ask is it competent to do so? Not about whether it is harmless or not. Can he do it? Can his action be justified in relation to his powers? If it cannot be justified, then it becomes unconstitutional. And when the Constitution has given that power to fix a date by INEC, to INEC, any attempt to regulate the exercise of that power becomes ultra vires the National Assembly. It becomes an action they cannot take. If the Constitution shall fix a date, it means it is at your discretion. And to be Silva's case with the PDP, the court says, look, INEC is the only person that has the sole discretion to fix an election, and it can postpone it. Now, when you're sequencing it, it means you're tying his hand. It means you're saying Any date you fix must come for presidential, must come at this time. It cannot come before this. Now what happens if National Assembly makes a law and we pretend it is constitutional? Say presidential election last, state governorship election first, and INEC postpones that election. Will another person not be wrong to say, look, since there's a law that says this is the sequence, until you hold that first one, you can't hold the others. And that's not the intention of the Constitution. The Constitution recognizes that there may be issues, logistic issues, or even legal issues that may make it difficult for an election to be conducted on a certain date. So it is INEC that understands its working and say, look, we had earlier indicated we'll conduct this election on this date. We will no longer conduct it. We may be shifting it to this date. And it is a waste of everybody's time for the National Assembly to be embarking on this exercise. They cannot point to the law that gives. And the Honorable has considered that the power to fix dates has been given to the National Assembly. By arranging sequence, the National Assembly is forcing them to fix date. And the Constitution has not given them such power. And we should be talking about issues that bring welfare benefits to the people, that improve security in the land, not a waste of time. I don't care about the politics of it. As a lawyer, I'm concerned about the legality of the action. And the action falls flat on its face because there's no law to support it.
But let me ask you, sorry.
Claire, all right, Claire, go ahead.
Yes, in the wisdom of the framers of our Constitution, the role of INEC was specified, Section 76. And the role of INEC is principally to set the date for the election. Yes. Date. Yes. Does that imply sequencing?
I've referred you to the third schedule, part 1, that said they should organize.
It has nothing to do with sequence.
Hold on. If I said you have to fix a date. Hold on.
Sorry, Honorable Mark Bella, let him make
we all agree that National Assembly is to organize election into the House of Assembly of a state, National Assembly, gubernatorial election, and presidential election. And we all agree that the Constitution has said INEC shall fix a date. And National Assembly, the INEC says, you know what? I have fixed July for this election. For presidential, I have fixed December. And National Assembly says, your sequence, presidential election should come first. Has National Assembly not taken away that power to fix date from them? It's a simple thing. It's a no-brainer. It's not an argument we should be making. If you have power to fix date, it means you have a discretion to choose date you consider suitable and right for the conduct. The moment somebody says, you must do it in this order, the effect of that is to take away your power to fix date, because you're compelled to do it willy-nilly in accordance with that, their so-called sequencing. And the Constitution never gave them that power. Let the National Assembly show me that section that says, in the exercise of the power to fix date, it shall be subject to an act of the National Assembly. The Constitution gave them power to make laws that determine the validity of a person elected into any of these offices. It does not give them power to tamper with the sequence. It is a matter solely for and for the Constitution to say it in Section 76, 178, 132, re-emphasizing it that they shall have power to fix date, means this power is absolute and is not to be tampered by a statute.
All right, Mazi Afamosigwe, thank you very much. Honorable Billa, your thoughts. You were interjecting a moment ago, so let's hear you now.
Okay, now this is part of what I was referring to when I started my argument earlier. The fact that even legal luminaries make inferences that they should know are not accurate. He made a mention of something in the third schedule talking about the word organize. We can go into the dictionary and find out what organize is. And it has nothing to do with setting the sequence. You organize an election by being able to determine what are the requirements, what you require to deploy. That is part of organization. But you use that word flippantly because you're trying to castigate what is a legitimate right of the National Assembly to do.
Just a minute. Just stick with the issue. Stick with the issue. He didn't speak flippantly. I mean, speak with the issues. No. Yeah, just go ahead. Yes.
No, because he also mentioned about us acting unconstitutionally.
Yeah, that's not flippant. It's not flippant. Just stick with the issues, please.
And he made certain inferences to seem as if there are other intentions to why the sequence was made, and this has to be addressed. And my reference to that term is the fact that it is easy to say, but it is not corroborated even constitutionally. The progenitors, when they wrote our Constitution, emphasized the point of date so that there will be no ambiguity about it, not to say that there's any other issue to it. If they had anything to do with the sequence, it would have been indicated. And like Dr. Sifo correctly mentioned, every other interpretation of the law is done by the judiciary, and every other enactment of the law is done by the National Assembly. And we are enacting the law where there is clearly a lacuna, and we're determining that we're going to do a sequence. The part he's referring to in the schedule of the Constitution, I want to emphasize, has nothing to do with setting a sequence. And I'll correct something you said again earlier, and this is what I want him to remember, because all this crying more than the bereaved, to us too seems to be sponsored from those who are threatened by something that does not exist. Because you said a tradition. I've just told you clearly, the history shows what you would even consider a tradition in this country is the fact that there are more times in the history of this country when the elections have started with the National Assembly. The records are clear. It is only the second time in the history of this nation, in 2015, that we attempted to do presidency first. So what is tradition in that regard? So what is alien? Is this something that is alien to this nation? What is the agenda there? If those who feel they have the clout and the political acceptability are afraid to confront the Nigerian people because of a sequence, then it's unfortunate.
All right, Honorable Mark Bella, thanks a lot. Let's bring in again Mazi Afam Osigwe. There are 3 legal instruments involved in the conduct of elections. As you have all rightly said, there is a constitution, there is the Electoral Act, and then you also have the manual for electoral officers, usually produced by INEC itself, who is the electoral umpire. My question is, in spite of the constitutional provisions that have been mentioned with regard to the conduct of election, where does the power arise from for the enactment of the Electoral Act? And is there a boundary for the issues in the Electoral Act, for instance, that will forbid the National Assembly from prescribing the sequence of elections? Afam Osigwe.
Now, let me, before I answer that, I said, in discussing this issue, it's either we appeal to tradition or we appeal to law. We can't appeal to both at the same time. An appeal to tradition is an admission that this is where INEC has customarily done this in the exercise of the powers conferred on it by law. And it will not be a good commentary for people to suggest that by criticizing the present action of the National Assembly, people have been procured or paid. That would be unfair and an unfortunate comment to make about people who have a divergent view on this point. And that's not the way to go. Now, back to your question. The National Assembly can only make laws with respect to the issues the Constitution has given them power. If you look at the exclusive legislative list, the power to make laws to regulate the procedure is in section 22. So it has to do with ease of presentation of petition and all those issues. Organizing of primaries and congresses by parties, issues bordering on how political parties and organize their primaries and how they relate with INEC on issue build up to the election. That's section 22 of the exclusive list deals with that. Now, on the issue of conduct of election, these issues are already in the Constitution. You see, you don't manufacture a lacuna in your mind and proceed to fill it. Whatever the legislature is doing, I will reiterate, must be justified in reference to the powers conferred on it. And where the Constitution has given powers to fix date, the National Assembly cannot suddenly wake up and claim that by not specifically talking about sequencing, that there is a lacuna. No, there is not. If I've given you a power to do something, there is no lacuna. Organizing, if I said organize this library, means arrange these books in their order. Let us not try to look at organizing to mean move ballot papers, sensitive materials, deploy EOs, no, it means it also could be interpreted to mean sequencing. Organize the books, organize this table, arrange these things, put them in the order you want them to go. And in read with section 76, 132, 178, it shows that they have the power to go. How do you want to go? Which one do you want to do first? Do you want to do all of them the same date?
Sorry, Afamosegwe, that's the question I'm asking. If you say organize is a word that is elastic in terms of the role of INEC, organizing elections would also therefore involve party primaries and then how to deal with election disputes. But these are not powers just hold on a second. Let me frame my question, then you respond. If you say organize, why then do you have the Electoral Act?
You must draw a distinction. The Constitution only recognizes that only candidates sponsored by political parties can stand for election. Now, the Electoral Act is to fill in the gap between how these candidates emerge, from how the political parties organize their internal democracy to the process of them emerging, to the point where their names are submitted to INEC. When they submitted to INEC and INEC embarks on the actual process of conduct of election, from these various candidates that have emerged from the various political parties for the various offices, then the powers that have been given to INEC under the Constitution kick in. If you also recall, it was the same way this same National Assembly tried to pass laws on the issue of registration of political parties. And it took the case by Barabe Musa, which went all the way to Supreme Court, to also show how they have overstepped their bounds. They are overstepping their bounds. They lack the powers they seek to exercise. It doesn't matter how other people are afraid of anything. I'm not a politician. I don't belong to any political party. But we dissipate energy in the wrong directions when we always do this thing. Now, if they thought it was so important, the timing is even important. Why didn't they do this 2 years ago? INEC suddenly releases a timetable. Then you wake up and suddenly start running to pass a bill. We're talking about lots of money. A whole lot of things will go wrong. Besides, I also would like the political Dr. Bosimu Usifo to address the ethics of this.
Yes, because
shifting election to 4 days instead of 3 days, what is the cost to an economy that could do with a lot of savings from some of this waste?
You know, now that you have said,
I think that's even
is it 3 days or 4 days?
It's 3 days. It over to 4 days.
It's 3. It's not.
It's 3 days.
No, you have national.
Whatever, but the point I'm making, okay, I was mistaken there. The point I'm making is, do things you can competently do in accordance with the powers given to you by the Constitution.
Okay, Afam, let's put you on hold. You talked about the ethics of this, and I'd like to bring in Dr. Sifo. Dr. Sifo, let us look at the politics of sequencing in a democracy. What value do you think, either way, either order, either by INEC timetable or National Assembly's timetable, what value do you think this sequencing will add, to our democracy?
Well, thank you very much. I want to first and foremost quickly respond to the gentleman barrister Osigwe. I can see contradiction in his argument, because when you begin to emphasize INEC has the absolute discretion to fix date, INEC's fixing date has been limited by the Constitution itself. The Constitution says election should be held maximum of 90 days to the expiration of the outgoing office holder, or a minimum of 60 days. So INEC is not at liberty to fix any date, because they've been restricted even by the constitutional provision. But the sequence, the order as being discussed by the Nigerian people right now is substantial, it is fundamental. It is a fundamental public policy that has to be derived from the Constitution. And when you have a fundamental public policy, it becomes an act of legislation. You cannot make an executive decision to accommodate or to respond to a substantial fundamental policy. You can only make legislation, it becomes a public policy, if you like, a law, which is to be implemented by the executive arm of government, and INEC is an executive agency. So the order of election is substantial. It is important for orderliness of the society, for a sustainable democracy, for a decorum targeted in the conduct of a free and fair election vis-a-vis the culture of the people, the population, the geography, etc., all sociological variables that compose a society. Now, when you put all these two conditions, you say, well, it is not possible for us to have all elections in 1 day. Otherwise, if Nigeria was a population of 1 million, Why can't you have an election in one day? Now, all these sociological variables, in furtherance of a stable society and a stable democracy, require this orderliness. And it becomes a substantial policy of the country, a fundamental policy. Once it becomes a policy, if it is not substantial, it will not be discussed. Once it becomes substantial, it now falls within the realm of the legislative government, because this is to make law. And okay, again, to equally respond to the contradiction of my brother Barrister Osigwe there is that when you talk of section 15A of the text schedule part 1, the conduct and the supervision and all that, it all refers to the conduct of election. Now, if you say the National Assembly don't have right to interfere in the conduct of election, who gave right for PVC, permanent voters card? Was it a decision of INEC? Why can't they say, no, we have to conduct the election? Don't come and tell us about PVC. We're going to use piece of papers to conduct the election. Now, who gave right for secret open ballot system in Nigeria? Why can't they say, no, we conduct the election? Don't tell us it's going to be open secret. Let us stay on the queue, or let us stay in their homes and cast the election. Okay, if I say, oh, we conduct the election, why can't they go to the diaspora and begin to register voters in the United States, Nigeria, and abroad? They don't have power to do that. Even though they conduct election, they have power to register. The Constitution says they shall be responsible for the registration, compilation of voters and keeping of the register. Do they not have right now to go to the UK or the America to go and be registered in Nigeria without an announcement of the National Assembly? So all these lacunas are there, intended by the law, by the Constitution, so that the lawmakers have to fill in this gap. So you cannot say we feel that therefore procedure or orderliness or sequence is sequence not with it. No. Or we have right to conduct election, therefore we can hold out the elections the same day. Or we don't want open secret ballot, it has to be an open ballot system, or let people stay at home. Why are they not doing that? So INEC cannot assume the role of legislation. They can only restrict themselves to the conduct of election, which means operating the laws, like the moderator has been asking the barrister, which refused to answer. What they gave right to electoral act? If the Constitution has provided for INEC to conduct all the election, why the electoral act? Why is the electoral act talking about PVC? Why is the electoral act talking about open ballot system? Why have INEC not gone to abroad to be able to register Nigerians to vote? Because this would require an electoral act for INEC to register people outside the country. So my argument and my take on this is that ethically the National Assembly is right, because I don't see this thing as injurious to anybody, and they're making politics of it because they are trying to overshadow what is important. What is important is the conduct of a free and fair election. And Nigerians are desirous of a free and fair election, not the order, the sequence. If the sequence will promote free and fair election, let it be. But I am saying the free and fair election is the foundation and is the responsibility of INEC. And INEC should not step forward to argue about order, because they'll be trying to become political and try to usurp the function of the National Assembly. They, as public servants, they should keep quiet, they should not speak, they should implement the laws given to them and ensure the conduct of free and fair election as far as this issue is concerned.
It looks like you are issuing decrees now from our network studios in Benin. Well, thanks a lot for your point. We would like Mazia Famosigwe to respond before we also take reactions from our viewers.
Now, there's no contradiction in what I said. When I said they have discretion to fix date, it is to the extent I took it for granted that we all know that the election must be conducted before a certain day before the expiration of a tenure. So it is in the context of fixing date for that constitutionally allowed period. There's no contradiction there. So whatever date they will fix will not be earlier than a certain date and will not be later than a certain date. And I took it for granted. If we saw that there's a contradiction, then I'm glad that I will now be more specific in that regard. You see, look at Section 22 and other provisions of the Constitution that gives power to make electoral act. Electoral act can only deal with matters that I have stated here that National Assembly can make laws with respect to. On issues specifically covered by the Constitution, the Electoral Act cannot go into that because the Constitution is taken to have covered the field, as we say in law. And if the Constitution has covered the field, then the National Assembly will be automatically disentitled from foraying into that area. So on the issue of fixing dates, sequencing is an indirect way of taking away a power that has been conferred by the Constitution. And it is not enough to say that INEC as civil servants, they should go and take laws made by the National Assembly. INEC, we must have respect for our laws. we must take actions that show that we don't treat our laws as if they are mere decorative pieces. Our laws must regulate our actions. And I have said, National Assembly, point at me to the specific section that subjects the exercise of power to fixed date to your sequencing. Because the sequencing alters and fetters the discretion of INEC to fix this date that the Constitution has given it power to. It is not an emotional argument. It is not a political argument. I don't know about bandwagon effect. Honorable may know that better than I do. But I know about the law. And that the National Assembly cannot competently go into this matter. Until they point me in the direction, I don't care about whether people are afraid or people are crying because they will lose from it. I want to know that they can legally do it. Because if we don't, it's because we don't have scant regard for our laws. There's a lot of impunity and recklessness in our society.
Do you think the National Assembly has acted ultra vires in this matter?
No, I do not. And I would like to ask the legal luminary where do you place Section 4 of the Constitution that gives us the power to make laws for the order also of this country as a whole? That is a point I will point you to, since you're asking for that.
And I will point you back to the fact that the Constitution have legislative lists. And it also issues the Constitution does not give you power to make laws with respect to. For example, you can't go and make laws. You can't go and make laws about refuse disposal in Lagos State. Because, for example, to show that your powers are circumscribed by the same Constitution, they are not at large.
All right, gentlemen, Honorable Bila, just keep your gunpowder dry, as we say. In the meantime, we indicated that there are reactions. Claire, let's take the tweets.
All right, let's begin with Dele Jack Solomon. The amendment by NAS is a welcome development. The electoral process and outcomes should be allowed to build up in a bottom-up electoral process, with the presidential election coming last. This way, the emergence of a rainbow of competent and credible candidates is possible.
Festus Akimboyewa has this. Our legislators rushed to amend the Electoral Act and change INEC's order of the coming 2019 elections for their selfish political interests. Our politicians need to change their selfish attitude and not the sequence of our elections.
And Johnson tweets, amendment by NAS on the sequence of elections is one of the best things I can see in this present NAS, because it reduces monopoly and distribute power to the citizens.
Christopher Likita tweets, I believe this matter should be in court. Either INEC or National Assembly can go to court if they want.
And Ibeneme Dominic tweets, this is a positive change.
Ode Samuel, the National Assembly is the one to fix election date and timetable, not INEC. Even date and time to need to be determined by National Assembly.
All right, and Victor Hiosumwa tweets, the National Assembly has no power to fix order of elections by Section 132, Section 176, and other similar provisions of the 1999 Constitution as amended. It's only INEC that has such powers. They need to firstly amend the Constitution. The amendment is overreaching.
Sani Michael Omakoji, this is whichever election comes first is inconsequential. Therefore, there is no need to overheat the polity on this.
All right. Thank you very much for your tweets. Please
there's another last one.
You have another last one?
Abdul Musa tweets, the National Assembly has shot itself in the foot.
All right. All right. Kingsley, I just like us too, because Honorable Mike, of course, Honorable Gila said something earlier on about bandwagon, but we will get to that after we return from this short break.
The team is visiting schools to teach children how to protect themselves from diseases. Do you know how we get illnesses like diarrhea, cough, and cold? No! They are spread through germs, which are everywhere. You collect germs that cause diseases. You pick up germs from any surface, like when you don't wash your hands after going to the toilet, while playing. And then you can get sick because of germs. That's why you need to fight germs to stay healthy by washing your hands and taking your bath with Dettol soap to protect from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Wash your hands. What you have to do is bath yourself. Dettol soap every day. Wash your hands.
This is Nigeria, a nation fast developing its potentials. Nigeria is developing, and you have a part to play in nation building. Declare your assets and income today in the Voluntary Assets and Income Declaration Scheme, VADE, which is on till March 31, 2018.
When you honestly declare your assets and income and regularize your tax status through VADES, the government will have more resources to build a better Nigeria.
Declaration before December 31, 2017 attracts no interest, no penalties, no tax prosecution, and no tax audit. Visit www.vades.gov.ng or the nearest tax office for more information. This message is brought to you by the federal government, Federal Inland Revenue Service, and the State Boards of Internal Revenue. VADES, I declare, my duty, my nation.
Cold and flu can spread through the contact of hands. And in such situations, I can't risk falling ill. So I recommend Dettol, as it protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs. That's why I want to be Dettol sure. Dettol, be 100%.
They've already done us proud. Nobody will ever imagine that in any Winter Olympics, there'll be Nigerians there. And then for the very first time, I'm really proud of them. And I believe strongly that that's the beginning of new things that's happening in sports. And I believe strongly that in the next 2 weeks, we should be hearing something that we'll be all be proud of. They are our girls, and I'm rooting for them.
Here we go, Stevie, let's go!
You are watching the Kwese Free Sports, UHF 32, for the fan.
All right, you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we're broadcasting live from the NTA. We've got more tweets coming in. Change to Progress tweets. Ask the member of NAS, why are we starting with NAS? Why not governorship and state of assembly before NAS? Then presidential election in that order. Is it not better to conduct state elections before national assembly elections? NAS members are playing games with Nigerians. Simple.
Stanley tweets, why must some individuals complain about the order of elections? If any party or candidate is competent, let him or her go to the poll and prove it.
And Ode Samuel tweets, National Assembly is the supreme house, and INEC must work under it by any law.
Pastor Adeyonju tweets, I support the National Assembly on this sequence because it gives the electorate room to vividly screen each contestant before being voted. Let everybody defend her competency and popularity to deliver before Nigerians.
All right, and Johnson tweets, regardless of the politics inherent in the reordering of the election schedule, what's important is for us to strengthen the electioneering process and INEC as an institution. The citizens must participate and be ready to protect the process and outcomes.
Stanley again has this tweet. For me, if it is done as it is newly amended, it will curb and cut down election malpractice in the country.
All right, Kingsley, those are the tweets.
No, we have
another one.
Yes, that's from Cecilia Okoroma. Cecilia Okoroma has a tweet there that says, INEC is independent. National Assembly, too, is also independent and should be allowed to remain so. Amendment of 2019 timetable, that's 2019 election timetable, is completely selfish.
And Gabriel Ikese tweets, to organize is to arrange in a working order. By implications, this include the sequence, timing, and dates. National Assembly is just being busy unnecessarily.
Emmanuel George, 2019 election should be conducted in such a way that people should build confidence in the entity of institutions in the country.
And Habila Zakshi tweets, the changes of sequence for election is a welcome development. Let the credibility of candidates give them their mandates.
And this last tweet is from Henry. Does it mean if I ask the barrister to come help me organize my wedding, he will also help fix the date and pay the bills?
Afam, you want me to attempt that?
Henry should note that the constitution has been part to fix this. So any day Henry asks me to organize his wedding, I'll fix the day.
All right, please let's move on, Kingsley. And this is very important because earlier on, the Honourable spoke about the bandwagon effect. And Dr. Sifo talked about the ethics, of sequencing and all that. But I'd like to ask, in all of this, beyond the supremacy tussle between INEC and the National Assembly, who has, constitutional powers to do what, is there a proxy agenda from the National Assembly and by INEC? Let me start with you.
There is absolutely no agenda with the issue of the sequence. This issue has become akin to throwing away the baby with the bathwater, because the other commendable aspects of this Electoral Act amendments have not even been spoken about. The fact that we have now given room for electronic voting, which is critical in the electoral process. The fact that we've dealt with the issue of a candidate who dies before the pronouncement of the winner of the election, and and several other issues that are to the benefit of the country. But this issue appears to have been overflogged because there apparently are some perceptions of political reasons for that. But let me re-emphasize what I said previously. We have had this sequence more in the history of this country than the other one.
What do you mean precisely by the bandwagon effect?
No, now the bandwagon effect is simple, and that is the fact that we have seen it in the only 2 occasions where this has occurred in this country, that once a presidential candidate emerges from a party at the center, Nigerians have this tendency not to want to be in the losing party. So before you know it, it starts to shape how elections are now concluded in other tiers of government, in other areas as well. And that is what has not been to the interest of this country. There are people who feel they don't like to be in the opposition, so because they have seen that, okay, this party has emerged, then everybody starts to try to vote in that direction. And remember, I also said, and that results in a lot of voter apathy. Because if, for instance, because our system of government is too central at the top. It's very central, power is at the center. So everybody starts to lose, that interest in subsequent elections because they feel this one has already been lost, which is where, power emanates from in our country, basically.
Honorable Bilal, thanks. Well, I would like Dr. Azayo Sifo to respond to this. Dr. Sifo, there are 2 issues that Honorable Bilal has re-emphasized now. One is to say that on the face of it, this amendment to the sequence of elections is to encourage greater political competition, and then the logic also of seeking to roll back voter apathy in the event of a presidential election, turning up a candidate who therefore creates, as it were, a bandwagon effect. What's your reaction to all of this intendment?
Well, I think the National Assembly should be encouraged to make laws to strengthen the conduct of the Independent National Electoral Commission. That is to say, they should make laws to assist ANEC so that ANEC can be competent to conduct free, fair, and credible elections in Nigeria. Now, you cannot be making laws on the basis of bandwagon effect. That also is self-defeating. That also is an admission of incredible election. Now, if election...
All right, Kingsley.
Sure, yeah, we lost him there, but I hope that our engineers will clear that up and then we come back. But it's just Honorable Mark Billa, again, I mean, you heard what he said before he went off, the signals from Benin went off, that it would be self-defeating to be claiming that perhaps one of the rationale for all of this is to avoid the bandwagon effect. What's your reaction?
No, now, you see, it is always good for us as a nation to address certain inaccuracies, and certain setbacks that we normally have in our electoral process. And we, as the 8th National Assembly, are responsible enough to confront these issues. So I appreciate his own point of view, but we cannot run away from what occurs in this country. And that is what we're trying to tackle head on. And like he rightly pointed out, which is part of the point I was trying to make earlier before the break, laws are intended to guide where there are no explicit provisions as well. That is why, apart from the Constitution, we still have acts of the National Assembly. That's why we have the Electoral Act. The Independent National Electoral Commission cannot operate in a vacuum. That is why it is in the Electoral Act that provisions are made for the card reader. It is only now legitimate because the National Assembly has responded to the critical nature of it being captured in a law, because we are all witnesses to how that technicality was relied upon, the legal luminary himself knows, by several people to win elections, because they say it's not, backed by a law. So that is the essence of the responsibility of the National Assembly, and we're working strictly within the ambit of the law in this regard and the powers given on to us in Section 4 of the Constitution.
All right, Honorable Mark Bella, thank you very much. Mazia Famosigwe, let's bring you in again. You talked extensively about what the constitutional provisions are. Might it have been different, for instance, if, in terms of legislative overreach, if the lawmakers had gone ahead to stipulate the dates on the specific date rather than the sequence of the elections?
That would have been worse, would have been horrible. But I think, I understand with some of his philosophical basis for this amendment. And from the tweet, it would appear that many Nigerians think it's a good idea. But no matter how well-intentioned the legislation is, if it is made without constitutional basis, it goes to no issue. It's not about the desirability. I'm talking about the competence of the National Assembly to make this law. And a point must be made, too, that we also waste a lot of legislative time. This National Assembly has been on the constitutional amendment for a long time. If they thought they wanted this power, they could have amended Section 76, 178, 132, and similar sections that deal with this mark to make it subject to an act of the National Assembly. That way, the issue will be beyond doubt a competent matter for the National Assembly to make laws on. But leaving the constitutional provisions in the state they are in and proceeding, despite the restraints in the Constitution, to exercise the power they don't have, to that extent is a waste of time. And I have no doubt that the courts will strike down such an attempt. I appreciate the gaps in the law they have filled about the reliability of what is it called again?
Card reader.
Card reader and all that. But that is not all. With respect to that, I concede to them they have power to make that law. But to the extent of sequencing of election, the order in which INEC must organize an election, they don't have power. Let me even for a moment consider they have power. Has it occurred to you that the moment INEC postpones any of the election, if we consider that the sequencing can be legitimately made, then the other elections stand automatically postponed because they are thereby compelled to do it in accordance with the sequence.
But Mazi, let us even
draft, not read the draft, but yes, the danger it could pose, where for any reason there is a distortion in that sequence, other people can argue that by this law, until you hold this election, you cannot hold the other one coming afterwards.
But let's even keep that on hold, okay, and let the competent court of law decide who is competent to carry out that responsibility. Let us look at the wisdom in this law. Is it a good law?
A good law is determined with reference to the competence of the person to make law. And I have said, from the tweets and some of the reactions, people seem to think it's desirable. Aside from the bandwagon argument, which I consider self-serving. Now, if it is good, since they have power to amend the Constitution, Why don't they work at that to give them power to do what they propose to do? Until they do that, a bad law is a law that is not only bad in terms of what it legislates, but with respect to the lack of power to make it. So if I rush to answer you that is a good law based on what I consider being the public perception, then I'll seem to be legitimizing the making of that which I have stated is unconstitutional. So to the extent that they lack power to make it, it remains a bad law. Because a bad law is also a law that can be enforced.
All right. We understand. We understand that the audio challenge to Benin has been cleared up now. Okay, Dr. Azar Sifo, sorry, we lost you a moment ago. If you could just go back to the question I asked you with regard to the rationale for this amendment. We understand that, well, it's to increase political competitiveness so that you deal with voter apathy thereby, and that all voter apathy will also encourage greater political competitiveness, plus the typical bandwagon effect that has been talked about.
Yeah, I spoke about bandwagon effects that will be self-defeating. The National Assembly should make laws to strengthen the independence and competence of INEC to conduct free and credible elections for Nigerians. Not about bandwagon effect. Because if elections are credible, anyone can come first. You know, so what is important is the credibility of the election, not the issue of bad. I can decide not to vote in a presidential election and decide to vote in a House of Assembly election. So I do not see any voters up. What will even increase political participation or voters' enthusiasm if when they know that the process will be free and fair, security, orderliness, and calmness. So I do not see that as a good argument on the part of the National Assembly to say, oh, if you put presidential election first, they will not want to vote because a party that wins like the first election wants to take the other. That's to say that you are saying Nigeria cannot conduct a free and fair election. We should be bigger than that. Ghana can conduct free and fair election. Liberia did theirs. So we have urged now that INEC in Nigeria should be able to conduct a free and fair election. I do not see any political alienation. I do not see any apathy coming from this aspect. However, the National Assembly has been contributing to the independence of INEC. I mean, the amendment of the Constitution to give INEC financial independence was to strengthen INEC to conduct a free and fair election. And that is why I would say that one of the basic principles of an effective and efficient public service is anonymity. INEC is a public service, independent public service. They should be anonymous, but they should quarrel if they don't have the materials to conduct a free and fair election. They cannot quarrel on the procedure, on the order, or the sequence, because that is actually not their responsibility. The responsibility of INEC is to conduct free and fair election, but they have the right to go to the National Assembly and say, we want money, we want budget, we want security, we want soldiers, we want police, we want to ensure a good environment for us to make sure this election is free and fair. Then on that basis, INEC can speak, but they cannot begin to speak on the sequence because it is not their job. And I will continue to disagree with my brother barrister there that date is order. Date cannot be order because it is not explicitly stated in the Constitution. If the Constitution meant that INEC should decide the sequence, it would have been stated so. But in so far it is not stated, it is only the National Assembly that can enforce such a substantial public policy, which is the art of lawmaking. And if the issue of trying to argue whether it is a bad or it's a good law, it can always be a good law, ethically or legally, because it is not injurious to anybody. And I want the barrister to convince Nigeria who is crying, who is affected, who is being hurt. INEC is not hurt because it's not their business. Their business is to conduct free and fair election. I don't think any candidate is hurt because the candidate wants free and fair election. So if the National Assembly in their wisdom, taking into consideration the existential reality of Nigeria and say, oh, let's do it in this order, I do not see anything, infraction on the Constitution or trying to usurp the power of any agency or organ as the case may be.
Thank you. Let's get back again and bring in Honorable Mike. And please, would like you to be very brief. You heard Barrister Mazi say that, as long as competency of both parties is in question, it is a bad law. Now, other people have said, look, NAS is doing this such that it wants to sway, powers onto itself to sway the outcome of the election and whittle down the powers, of the bandwagon powers of the president and the governors. So how do you react to that? If you say at the onset that there's no proxy agenda behind this move?
Okay, thank you. Very quickly, I'm happy that the barrister has conceded to the fact that majority of Nigerians are in favor of this amendment.
He did not concede.
No,
He only
well,
stated.
the tweets themselves speak volumes.
Precisely.
And the chairmen of the political parties have been rejoicing on every fora they have found the opportunity to do so, because it gives them the opportunity to field their candidates with that confidence that they'll be given a fair opportunity by the electorate. Also, let me also refer to what Dr. Osifo said, and this is where I disagree with him, at least today. And he talked about the bandwagon effect being defeatist. No, it is not. He mentioned something critical: credibility. Credibility of the election, free and fair election. Credibility has to do with handling every situation that makes it impossible for the electorate to exercise their constitutional, responsibility and not be disenfranchised. And that is the wisdom behind saying give everybody that opportunity. So now there is no plan, there's no agenda. On the contrary, we're only upholding what we believe is in the best interest of the country. We're only putting a sequence that has been done several more times in this country. Nobody cried foul then. But for some reason now, from certain quarters, this issue is coming up. But thank goodness, we have taken the statistics. We know that the majority of Nigerians are in favor of the law. In terms of, let me conclude by saying this. In terms of the Constitution, the only place the barrister and those of them who believe the National Assembly doesn't have the power to do so, the only place in the Constitution they refer to is the third schedule, section 15, that talks about the word organize. That is all. They do not doubt the fact that in the other sections, the same Constitution clearly indicates only date. They do not question the fact that section 4 gives the National Assembly the powers to make laws.
And there was also no constitutional provision of sequencing. But we've got more tweets. We've got more tweets. This one is from Kingsley.
Not from this Kingsley.
Not from this Kingsley.
This one, it says Kingsley Atochi ZKC. That's not.
All right, Kingsley.
It says, this one says, why fix it when it isn't broken? Why change the sequence now? We should be worried about 10-year-olds who are voting in Kano.
And Emmanuel George tweets, INEC should be allowed to conduct election in free and fair, not manipulations.
Henry Ugu tweets, Mazi Afamosigwe has nailed the issue. There is need to respect the rule of law in Nigeria.
And Justice for All tweets, the election of the president should be the last to be conducted because it will make those who depend on the president goodwill to fail. The sequence is not targeted at anybody.
Ozovehe tweets, bandwagon effect can happen in any order of sequence. All stakeholders should rather expend their energy on voter education and mobilization.
Again, justice for all. The only thing that is permanent is change. So let us embrace the new sequence of election. Is INEC contesting? Why are they jittery of the sequence of election?
Henry Chubuike Ugo says, National Assembly is only being selfish by attempting to limit the constitutional powers of INEC.
And Princess Lamy tweets, if we have a strong institution that will facilitate conduct of free, fair, and credible elections, there will be no need talking about sequence or amendment.
Ayodele Umar tweets, if the Electoral Act is the making of Parliament, then it can be amended when necessary by Parliament.
And Abdul Karim Zubair tweets, the action of the National Assembly is ill-timed and suspicious.
Emmanuel George, the controversy over sequence of the elections must be examined to be morally and legally justified. Nigerians will not forgive INEC or the National Assembly. What we need is a clean election. We will not tolerate grammar. We are watching. We want a better Nigeria.
And Abdul Karim Duro tweets, it's obvious NAS has an agenda. Strengthen INEC so we can have the national elections on the same day. It saves a lot of money. and also reduces apathy. All right?
Those are the tweets that we can take, and just on that note, we would like to express our deep appreciation to our three guests this morning. From our Benin Network studios, we were joined by Dr. Isaiah Osifo, who teaches in the Department of Political Science and Public Administration at Benin University, Okada. Dr. Osifo, thanks a lot for being our guest this morning.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we also would like to appreciate Mazia Famosigwe, former Secretary General of the Nigerian Bar Association.
Thank you so very much. It's been an interesting session this morning.
Okay, and last but not the least, Honorable Mark Bila, who represents Gwe East and Gwe West Federal Constituency in Benue State. Thanks a lot for being on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Thank you very much for giving the opportunity for clarification.
And Kingsley, of course, not to forget that we did invite Senator Abdullahi Adamu, former governor of Nasarawa State and Chairman Senate Committee on Agriculture, but of course he wasn't able to make it for this discussion. And we do thank all of you who've sent in your tweets. We appreciate you, and we also expect that your tweets will come in again tomorrow. We now move on now to sports, and let's join our sports desk for details.